case. But I would like to bring up Kenneth KC Estenson, who is the SVP and General Manager of CNN.com, and who runs all of CNN.com's business endeavors. CNN.com is the most trafficked news website in the world, so I'm sure we're all really looking forward to hearing what he's got to say. If you would like to join me in welcoming KC to the stage.
Good morning. How's everybody? Good. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come and speak. This is one of the larger crowds I've ever spoken to, so I thought I would start by taking your picture if I could. So I like to, could you scoot together? So how many people? I think maybe 3,000 people here. It's very, very exciting to be here and get a chance to speak with you about the state of the news media around the world, and I think build on some of what was discussed in the prior panel about the emergence of social media and how media brands can reach a broader array of audiences. But to start, I think the place to go is first to the past and talk about where things started for us in news media. We have talked a lot about the amount of change that has happened in digital media in the last 10 years. But I think it might be helpful to go back maybe 100 years to the beginning of print. And the print media was, from a news perspective, based on second-day reporting, and also regional, if not local reporting. So people did not know what was happening in the world beyond their immediate neighborhood until the newspaper came out the next day. Well, that was taken over later in time by radio. And radio was the first time that news and analysis was transferred into voice, and it became a more community-driven experience. People gathering around the radio to hear the news of the day. It also compressed the time from the event to when people knew about it. Because the news event could happen, people could hear about it immediately. Well, that gave way then to the television. And the television took the broadcast medium and started to connect us to the world and bring imagery against the news and connect the world together. And that meant that we needed to have people who looked good on camera. Not saying that this gentleman looks good on camera, but the anchor and the field correspondent was created, and global news organizations started to span the globe. And this is where CNN started 30 years ago. Well, that was followed by this, the computer, which did two very interesting things for news and media. It took a global reach and brought it back to a very personal experience, you and your computer. It also, that was the first thing. The second thing was, it's the first time that a consumer or a reader or a viewer of the news was given the promise of being able to interact with the news and reporting itself. And we have seen this fundamentally change the way that that people are engaging now with news and news media. It is no longer a broadcast effort. It is very much a community-driven effort, and I'd like to show you some examples of how that works today. But before I do that, the other thing that has happened is the media landscape has splintered and fragmented. So the broadcasters who used to cover everything from news to sport, arts, culture, documentaries, movies, scripted entertainment programming, that started to shift and change in the 1980s, where in the television space you have entire networks that are dedicated just to cartoons, or just to historical programming, or just to news, or just to weather. And all of that is now coming into the palm of your hands. So we have personalization of media, we have diversification of media, we have verticals of content being created, we have consumers being engaged, and we have it all coming into the palm of your hands. It is arguably the most exciting and transformative period to be in media in the history of media itself. So for CNN, this has meant that we have had to change the way we report. This is Anderson Cooper, one of our anchors and correspondents. Anderson made his career by going into Kosovo in his 20s without any correspondence badge, working for any official network, and he started to film the events that were happening in the Balkans at that time. And he started to post those videos to the internet, and he developed a following of natural sort of social media popularity at that time, very early, for being an independent reporter. And now today he's on our air, and he is one of the, I think, next generation reporters who are able to shoot their own material, edit, write, and produce. And the work that he did most recently with the earthquake in Haiti is a perfect example of that. So if our reporters need to be able to do different things, we also, as an organization, need to be aware of the changes that are happening on the other end. And that is that the consumer reality has been altered forever. In markets like Korea, you have 27 hours of media consumption a day. How is that possible? It's only possible by having television, mobile, internet, and gaming all happening at the same time. And before I came to CNN, I worked at Disney, and we spent a lot of time looking at children ages 7 to 15. And one need only look at that generation to see how our media landscape, from a consumption perspective, has changed forever. This means that there will be a world of incredible new opportunities for organizations like CNN and other news and media companies around the world. There's some worry that these older platforms are dying. And I like to think of it less as these older platforms are dying, to say more that our consumption is expanding and growing. When you look at what's happened in the United States in the last 10 years, this is the number of hours spent per person in each of these media. And what you see is declines in traditional music, newspapers, radio, magazines, and slower growth for television and increasing growth in usage of the internet, video games, and mobile technologies. But we still read newspapers, and we still watch television. And I think as a global population, we always will. But for somebody who is in a position of programming and creating and distributing news, we need to now be able to play across all of these mediums, with the exception maybe of video games. The competitive landscape has also become more challenged. Traditionally in the United States, CNN has viewed itself as having two primary competitors, Fox News and MSNBC. But this new consumer reality means that there's a broader array of competition. First, we have broadcast news outlets like NHK here, or the BBC worldwide, or CBS or ABC. We can add to that mix newspapers, which all have digital enterprises as well. Financial Times, Wall Street Journal, International Herald Tribune. Add to that mix magazines, which with the creation of tablet technologies like the iPad are pushing their publishing power into digital. Add to that portals and social media, outlets that both enable a news creator like CNN by referring traffic to us, but also chip away at time spent for sites like CNN because people can read about it elsewhere. And then add to that independent news wires like AP and Reuters. And finally, blogs and independent content producers. So what this means is for somebody who works at CNN today versus CNN 30 years ago, the competitive landscape is far more fragmented and in some ways far scarier. The choices we have to make as an organization are not as clear as they used to be when we had a single television network we were competing with. So this is, just depending on your personal outlook on the world, either really exciting or terribly frightening. I like to think of it as really exciting. What we've decided at CNN is that we need to bring to the world high-quality, original, distinctive reporting as quickly as we can while maintaining our trust and integrity of the quality of reporting that we do. We need to add to that what the best magazines in the world do, which is in-depth features, investigations, interviews. We need to add to that the new consumer reality, which is that our content must be tailor-made for each of these platforms in real time. An incredible operational and technical challenge to pull that off. The days of taking a piece of content and just repurposing that across every platform are coming to an end. People are expecting each of these devices and each of these technologies to provide them with experiences that are custom tailored to those devices. And for us, we want to add what we call our CNN superpowers, which is reporting that is distinctive, reporting that's in-depth, reporting that's provocative, put it everywhere, on every platform, and have it available all the time. So to be in a news organization today is to never be able to sleep. So where do we go? And what is the roadmap for CNN and maybe for other news and media organizations? outlining our path to the future. Number one, we need to expand our editorial base. We can no longer rely on breaking news as being enough to be a strategic differentiator. With the advancement of mobile and social media platforms like Twitter, news moves around the world faster than any one organization can catch it. And so by expanding our editorial base and not just covering breaking news, but starting to cover a wider array of categories like entertainment, arts, technology, culture, even areas like religion and food, it expands the notion of what CNN is in the eyes of the consumer. The second is we cannot be afraid of social media. And in fact, we must embrace it and try to move our organization into first position to pioneer and do things with social media that others have never done before. And I'm going to give you some examples of that in a minute. And finally, we need to extend this brand as far as we can across as many platforms as possible without diluting the profitability of our business. A real challenge, to be sure. So when I came to CNN 2.5 years ago, this is what our website looked like. Very text-oriented, very cluttered, a little bit of photography thrown in. And we knew that in order to embrace this new world, we needed to alter the site. And so when we rebuilt CNN.com, we anchored it on 3 key tenets. The first is the breaking news and headlines that we discussed earlier. It's not enough to just do breaking news. Video infrastructure that scales. We bring in hundreds of videos every day. We bring in live streams from all over the world, and we're able to transcode those video streams to viewing online. And this effect ultimately creates nearly 100 million video views a month of news-related content around the world. And then the third, as we talked about earlier, is the embracing of social media. So we've integrated Facebook, which is the largest social network in the world, certainly the largest one in the United States. We've integrated Facebook Connect right into the homepage of the site. And it's a little difficult to see in the graphic on the screen, but that size of that space on the homepage is equal to, if not greater than, the size of the advertisement on the homepage. And you can then extrapolate from there how important social media and audience engagement is to us against our advertising. The idea with the Facebook Connect is that you can log in through our site using either your Facebook credentials or your CNN.com credentials, that your registration and identity in both platforms will tie together. And then when you read an article you like, you can post it directly to your Facebook page and it will be seen by all of your friends. It starts with one person. Maybe it goes from one person to their friends, 400 or 500 friends, and then from there, maybe it's referred to thousands of other people. Trying to tap the network effects or viral effects of social media on a traditional news site. When we took the notion of social media and brought it back into CNN.com itself, through the creation of a product we call News Pulse. What News Pulse is a ranking of the most popular stories from around the world. The most popular stories that are on CNN.com at the moment. So we created a custom algorithm that ranks the popularity of these articles against the number of comments that have been left on those articles. So remember what I said in the radio or the television medium. Now with the internet, we can empower the consumer to help us make the choice about which stories are most important. So the role of the editor is starting to shift and change inside a news organization as consumers tell us which articles or stories they are most passionate about through the comments that they leave and through the number of times that they view those articles. And we add on top of that then the number of times that that article has been shared through social media. And what happens is then together those things give us the most popular stories of the site. And I'm going to show you how that turns into a product in a minute. I also talked about how we need to expand our editorial. And so what we've done over this last year and a half is launch almost 10 new sites or sections or blogs as part of CNN.com. And these are in areas like religion, technology, food, health, and breaking news. I want to show you what a couple of those look like. The idea here with something like CNN Entertainment is to take a core news site that's known for global events and create an entertainment section that is authentic to people who really like celebrity, music, culture, arts, and entertainment. It's meant to be a more visually driven layout and design. And the notion here is that this site can either be programmed by our editorial staff, or if you go into the site and you click those pink words there on the right, if I can do this, over here, it says Trending Now. And what happens with that is it taps into the News Pulse algorithm, and it reshuffles the articles in the entertainment section by popularity. So now the audience decides that this story about Sandra Bullock is the most popular or most worthy article of the section. So that is taking a broadcast notion, this article we've created, and putting it in the hands of the audience and letting them decide what's most important. We've also expanded our reporting into the world of technology. And the idea here is to cover the culture of technology in a way that's authentic to people who are into gadgets, mobile, social media, etc. So our technology section starts to get its own look and feel as well. We also have done what few news organizations in the United States are willing to do, and that is cover the news of religion and faith around the world. So we take the core news stories that are happening, and we come at them from angles of religion and faith and spirituality to help people understand what the implications are from that perspective. Added to that, an entire section dedicated to food and food culture. And this section is updated multiple times a day with stories of health and food safety, but also recipes and events that are happening in the world of food. And we've done this as well in our core news reporting with something called Afghanistan Crossroads, which is our attempt to go behind the headlines of the war in Afghanistan to give people a more immediate and real-time accounting of the stories behind the headlines in that battle. And we've also done this in entertainment by bringing a blog behind the entertainment section called the Marquee blog. And the idea here is real-time updates of events and news that are happening in the world of entertainment. To give you an idea of what's happened as we rebuilt the Marquee blog and our entertainment section section, we have gone from in the neighborhood of 60 million page views per month, and with the blog and the redesign of the entertainment section, upwards of 90 to 100 million page views a month in this entertainment section alone. We've also talked about embracing social media, and what we see with our core competitors is that being slow to embrace social media, not going after these platforms early, can lead to a significant disadvantage in a game of catch-up when it comes to having followers and adoption on this platform. So as a business and organization, we try to stay ahead of the curve, and today we have over 10 million Twitter followers worldwide. What we've done behind just having broadcast out through Twitter is we've worked with Twitter itself in San Francisco to create visualizations of Twitter data. So this is what we did for the World Cup. We attached our algorithms and databases to Twitter's feed of World Cup tweets and updates. And then in real time, we were able to show which athletes, which teams, which events were getting the most activity inside of Twitter. And then we were placing that into a visualization layer inside of CNN.com. So we are no longer just a news organization or a reporting organization, but also a technology and product organization. We've also done this through interesting partnerships. This one is with TED, which is a global learning conference. TED stands for Technology, Technology, Education, and Design. And some of the most interesting speakers in the world go to TED conferences and talk at places like this about what's happening in their area of academic expertise or their area of business or their area of social change. And what we do is we work with TED to bring those videos and those speeches into our site and broadcast them to the 30 to 40 million users we have of CNN.com. And we've also done this with edgier or more youth-oriented publications. This is with a company called Vice Media, or VBS. Vice is an alternative culture magazine and website that's geared at 20-year-olds in the United States and around the world. And we have worked with them to bring some of their reporting into CNN.com as well. We also wanted to set out to try to bring a different aesthetic to the way that our video is created. So all of these things that you see, whether it's the partnership with TED or the partnership with Vice or this video that I'm about to show you, are meant to help CNN be more relevant to younger audiences and to expand the notion of what people think of when they think of CNN. Most people think of CNN for trusted, credible, reliable reporting of global events and breaking news. And all of that is still true. We're trying to also stretch the brand into new areas and apply that trust and credibility by reporting on some new and different things. And to that end, I want to show you a little bit of this video about a band called the XX. And I'm going to give you an idea of how some of the videos that we do for CNN.com look different than the standard correspondent or anchor package that you would see on television, which tends to have a person standing with a microphone and a building behind them telling you the news that's happening in that building. And this we try to do in a little bit of a different way.
be on stage, and I don't know, I still think it's still weird going on the stage. We're still kind of adjusting to it all. I don't think even back when they were out now.
So it just gives you a sense of a different style of storytelling. First person, no correspondent, letting the subjects of the piece tell their own story. And so we're trying to bring a little bit of a different perspective and view to the way that we cover the news. I'd also like to talk about empowering the global citizenry and the global community of news gatherers. One of the fundamental things that has shifted and changed with mobile technologies and news is the ability to do what I did at the beginning of this speech, which is to capture a video or a photo of a newsworthy event. And almost instantly, with a cellular connection, upload that video into a platform like YouTube, or in our case, iReport. iReport is our citizen journalism community. It has over 600,000 active iReporters around the world. These are regular people who live in different places around the world, who regularly contribute news and views of the events that are happening in their lives. And we ingest all of those into CNN.com, put them in iReport into this section of the site. If you take a look at what iReport has done, we've had nearly 500,000 iReports submitted to date. And we go through a vetting process of bringing our producers and editors to look at every one of those videos, to reach back to the person who created it, check for its authenticity, and then we can officially make it available for CNN television to use. So in instances where we've had media blackouts, let's say in Iran, and our correspondents were pushed out of Iran, it was people on the ground with cell phones capturing footage of those events that were able to upload into iReport that gave the Western world an imagery of what was happening on the ground. It's a fundamental shift in what it means to be a news organization. This map here shows you with the red dots where our iReporters are around the world, and with the green dots where we have traditional news affiliates and partners, and with the yellow dots where we have bureaus. So think of the expansive reach of empowering consumers to share their media with you. This is not just to say social media is interesting or engaging or should be done to extend your business. For us, this is an empowerment platform that creates a global community of news gatherers and fundamentally and exponentially increases the array of reporting that we can get from around the world. We've taken that technology behind iReport and have applied it into situations like Haiti, where there were hundreds of thousands of people impacted by that earthquake and tens of thousands of people who went missing. And their families and loved ones from around the world did not know if the people in Haiti, their family members in Haiti, were alive or dead or injured. And so what we did with iReport was created a database in real time that allowed family members from around the world to put in the name of their loved one who lived in Haiti, and allowed community members and people who were on the ground in Haiti to indicate whether or not they had been found and what their condition was. We then took that database and we partnered with Google, and we extended that out to the world. And we also connected that to the Red Cross so people could make donations or give aid to that event. And what what we think of as an organization. At CNN, for CNN as a news organization, we like to say we have passion about the news and events of the world. But we also have compassion for those who are affected by these events. And we are unafraid to use the power of our brand and our reporting to try to make a difference in the world and to help those who are affected by these events. An example of that is an interactive graphic that we've done called Home and Away. As you know, we've, as a global community, been engaged in wars in Iraq and Afghanistan over the last number of years. And what we wanted to do was we took a database that we created inside of CNN of all of the coalition forces casualties that have happened in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we have laid that against a mapping API or database of where those people are from around the world. I'm showing you an example for the United States. So the way that this works, is we're able to go in here and see where these battles happen. The large circles are the largest number of casualties, and the smaller circles are smaller battles. And then it maps back into where in the world this person who passed away lived. In this case, this is Lieutenant Laura Walker, and she was from El Paso, Texas. And so this is a type of technology and an interpretation of doing the news that is not possible on television. This is a user who can come in and interact with this. They can type in names of battles or names of soldiers who may have been wounded or died. And then when you click into that person's name, we've created a profile. And through iReport, people can pay tribute or leave their memories of that member of the coalition forces who passed away on the page. It's a pretty powerful example of using social media, digital media, the power of our core reporting, and good database engineering to redefine what news is. We've also did this in the recent Chilean miners incident where at least 33 Chilean miners were rescued from the bottom of this mine. And what we did is now you can go in and you can interact with the map. You can see how the rescue is going to work and how the process was going to unfold. And each time one of the miners was pulled out, we're able to create in real time a sort of background and a biography of who that person was and how they were affected by the event. Finally, I'd like to talk very quickly about mobile and our reach into mobile in particular. This last year, we launched an iPhone app, and we've released it globally now. It's still not available in Japan, and I'll explain that during the Q&A. But what we're trying to do is create an experience that's native to the device. So take all of our reporting and bring it down into the device, and so when you turn it sideways, you're able to kind of scroll through the top stories of the day and bring the whole power of CNN and put it in the palm of your hands. And with this app, you can also create an iReport and upload it into CNN, and it will show up on the site and in the phone in the iReport section as well. So we've come a long way from the very beginning of print to radio to television into the internet and finally into where we're at today. And I think that for CNN, we are just getting started. There are so many opportunities in front of us, and we're really, really thrilled for the future. So thank you very much.
It's a great privilege for me to introduce the last speaker of Adtech, who is Caleb Hunt, who is the Chief Marketing Officer of Citibank Japan. And Caleb is going to be sharing with us his thoughts on the difference between a digital marketing strategy and marketing for a digital world. So with that, if you would like to join me, welcoming Caleb to the stage.
Two days of great speakers, and I am the last thing standing between you and a beer on a Friday night, so I'm going to try to make this as interesting as possible. I believe that our opening keynote, the gentleman from Google, talked about their vision for the future in 2020. Something very big, something very far out, something very dramatically world-changing. I'm not going to really talk that much about the future. I'm going to talk about some stuff that I see happening in the world today, and a few things that we're doing in the world today. When it comes to including every so often, hit my little button. So, my name is Caleb Hunt. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Citibank Japan. Citibank Japan has a retail banking operation, an investment banking operation, a corporate banking operation, and a number of credit cards companies that are in this market. Basically, as a globally distributed financial services organization, what we do is we try to create financial success for our customers and clients around the world. We're a very large company. I mean, I think we have to just do the establishing stuff at the beginning of the presentation. We're in 140 countries. In 100 of those countries, we're not just there with a representative office. We're there with a full operational platform. We have $12 trillion worth of assets under custody. This is enormous. This is the size of the total household debt of the United States of America. We move $3 trillion around the world every day. $3 trillion is much more than the Fed moves on any given day. We have 200 million customers and 16,000 retail branches, physical distribution points. And one of the things in the presentation that I'm going to talk about is physical distribution, the convergence of physical and digital. 15 million online banking relationships, which isn't very large in usual terms, but it's pretty good for a bank, believe me. And in terms of marketing, we spent $1.6 billion total marketing spend in 2007. About 16% of which went into digital. And in 2011, assuming our plan process moves according to the way we hope it's going to go, we'll spend around about the same amount, slightly more, 1.7 billion, but you'll see the digital component increasing. And we see that ramping up, as the gentleman from Google will have said, we see that ramping up until it hits 40 to 45%. I don't know about 60% of the spend, but it will be a very, very significant component of what is obviously a very significant marketing budget. I'm conscious that the interpreters asked me to speak slowly, so I'm going to kind of do this every second. Now, I have a small confession to make. I am a dinosaur. I am not a digital marketer. I'm just a marketer. I'm middle-aged. I work for a bank, not a sexy startup. I use my mobile phone to make telephone calls and nothing else. I don't use Twitter. I'm not only a dinosaur, I'm this guy. I'm a social marketer. Carnivorous marketer. So today, as a carnivorous marketer, I don't have anything to sell to you. I don't work for a sexy startup. And I'm not going to talk about technology platforms. I'm just going to make some observations about things that I think are happening in the world and some of the city's responses to those things. I'm going to begin by telling the kind of story that you expect to hear at a digital marketing conference. It's a story about the big guys and the little guys and how the big guys don't get it. We spend tens of millions of dollars every year on buying media on and offline in Japan. And in 2007, a few years ago, I asked our media agency to start reviewing the way they gave us metrics on effectiveness. I wanted different share of voice and share of spend metrics. And at that time, this very major Japanese agency was only able to provide us with the data on what they called the Yondai media. Maybe some of the audience are familiar with the term Yondai media, the big four media. Now, what do you think the big four media in 2007 were, according to this agency? They were TV, newspaper, radio, and magazine. And this was 2007, when quite clearly the internet had surpassed magazines and radio. And where OOH was nowhere in the picture, but it's also obviously an enormous source of ad spend. So, we developed our own methodologies. We actually hired a security company to drive around the major cities of Japan looking for billboards and giving us a competitive share of voice on OOH. We do now track web. We're able to track SEM. And of course, we're able to begin looking at, and I think people working on methodologies, begin looking at social media volume and sentiment metrics. But when I asked our media team just before this presentation if that agency was still talking about Dion Media, the answer was yes. Right? So there are some people who are still not getting it. And I guess that's the kind of story that you expect to hear from somebody like me at a conference like this. But the real reason I chose the story was because I just wanted an excuse to talk about battles between old and new and show a picture of a fight between a shark and a giant octopus. Because digital is now the water we swim in. Digital has become everything we do. This battle between the shark and the giant octopus, this battle between old media and new media, between the internet and print or the other ATL communications vehicles, the battle is over. And you guys won. The digital world has now taken over what we used to call the non-digital world. I sense a certain amount of impatience when I have conversations with agencies and with other people who work in the digital marketing arena. Why isn't it moving faster? Why can't we have more share of your ad spend? Why can't digital be 50% or 100% of the money you spend? Look, be patient. It's obviously going in that direction. All you have to do is wait because the money is constantly changing. No question about that. But I think that what you need to accept is that describing a marketing person as a digital marketer nowadays is like saying a marketing person has two legs. It's usually true, but it's not very useful. All marketing people must be digital marketers nowadays. And that's why I believe that at the broadest level, in the title of the presentation, you can't really talk about digital marketing strategies. For sure, you can talk about digital marketing tactics. And in the team that I run, we have a digital marketing unit whose job is digital marketing tactics. But my creative team, and my media team, and my activation team, and my brand team, they're all digital. And the digital guys have to think outside the digital channel as well. When we're talking about marketing strategy as opposed to tactics, because strategy is about connecting everything together, everything is now digital. Nothing we marketers do, and nothing that our audiences do, is not impacted by digital technologies now. Spencer Stewart. They're a big recruiting agency. And they released an interesting report called 3.0. And the report is based on feedback from CMOs and senior marketers around the world. And I want to read something. Traditional, from-the-center brand building and communication approaches are losing their effectiveness, with dramatic implications for the way markets are reached and nurtured. The skill sets required for the marketers of the future are undergoing significant evolution as a result. The model of the future will require brands to engage consumers with useful information and entertainment when and where consumers want. Marketers and marketing agencies will also need to proactively develop new norms and new processes to exploit these opportunities. So 2 things. We're not talking about advertising now. Those things that are being, I think we all agree with those comments. Those things that are being described there, fundamentally to me, do not boil down to communications or marketing communications. They boil down to value exchange and customer experience. Well outside the normal set of what a marketing communications set would look at. We're no longer thinking about marketing primarily as advertising. And secondly, although these shifts are triggered by a range of shifts, including digital technology and capabilities advancing, the implications for these shifts do not take place in a digital channel or in a digital space. The implications of these shifts are fundamental to what we do across everything that we do. But the problem, I guess, is that digital marketers, stereotypically, and I apologize, have never got out of the habit. Maybe it's nostalgia for the startup in the garage in 1996. Have never got out of the habit of thinking about what they do, about what you do, as an opposition to the way other things are done, as an alternative way of doing things. But you can't think like that anymore. What you do is truly important, and what you do is now part of everything that marketers do. It can't be a separate thing, an alternative. It is embedded in everything. Digital people need to move beyond this mindset. Digital isn't the web. It isn't mobile. It isn't apps. It isn't a channel. It isn't an environment. It isn't a digital space. Digital is part of all that we do. The technical word for it is substrate. From Latin, sub is under, structure is level. Digital is now the layer upon which everything in our world and the world of our audiences is built. That small group of people who thought they were lighting a candle was a forest fire. This industry was a forest fire. And the thing about a forest fire is it's incredibly disruptive, but it clears the ground for new growth. You take out the old trees and the new ones grow. So, you may be asking yourselves, where is he going with all of this? Let me put a few points out there. First of all, before we talk about consumers and audiences, I'm going to continue to poke you and talk about our side of the equation, the digital market side of the equation. We run after the latest thing too much. Despite what it says in the Adtech brochure, I have nothing against Second Life. But I did spend hundreds of thousands of dollars building a Second Life, a very successful Second Life site, thinking that Second Life was going to change the world. And it didn't. Now, Linden had a great business and a good business model, but it didn't change the world. And as an industry, we have to wean ourselves off this idea that the latest thing, whether it be mobile, whether it be apps, whether it be push technology back in the days, is going to be the silver bullet that suddenly changes everything. It's not. These are all incremental parts of a deeper and more fundamental shift. We need to be thoughtful So, I thought about writing a presentation with no charts in it. Couldn't do it, sorry. I just want to box the universe for you. I want to define a universe and talk about the universe. These numbers are the numbers of people in a survey of the general adult population that was done around the world by a research company called TNS. This report hasn't been released yet. I think Mark Williams is in the audience. If he is, thank you, Mark. The numbers represent the number of people who access, who consume these media types on a daily basis. In other words, within the sample, general population around the world, 61% of the sample use online at least once a day. 54% of the sample use TV at least once a day. And these numbers are global, and these numbers are the Japanese numbers. And you can see that in Japan, while online is strong and large and significant, it's still not quite caught up with television and newspaper, which I think if I was wearing my media planning hat, you would say that I didn't do some cross-media strategies. But I want to drill a little further. I'm not talking about media, I'm talking about the consumer. You drill a little further on this. When that population, that 54% of people in the sample who are going online every day in Japan go online, what are they doing? Well, they're obviously using email. Alright? 74% of them use email every day. And these other two, news and basically personal interest, in news, weather, culture, blogs, personal interests and hobbies, those things are areas where the Japanese consumer, the Japanese online user, is very similar to the global online user. But there are two deltas here. You can't see it with the text. There's a big delta in Japanese use of social networks versus global use of social networks, where it appears that the Japanese use of social networks less. And this is borne out by other data in the study that say that the average number of friends that a Japanese person has in a social network is lower than in many other markets. And the other delta is around this one, which is multimedia. Now, it may be because the way the survey was constructed, we're not picking up use of TV to mobile, I don't know. But certainly it seems the Japanese audiences are not using mobile. So when we know how many Japanese people are consuming digital media, are going online every day, and when we know what they're doing online every day, from a marketer's point of view, this is where it gets interesting. The blue bars above the line indicate the level of receptivity that online users have to brands being part of their online experience in these different activity categories. And the red bars below the line indicate those percentages of people who see brands being part of their online experience as intrusive and disruptive. So there's good news here. The blue bars are full. That is a good thing. And if I was working for an ad agency, I would say, yeah, let's go, the blue bars are full. But I am responsible for safeguarding Citibank's brand and a number of other brands in this marketplace. And for me, the red bars are too big for me to push my brand aggressively into that space. I need help. And we work very closely with our agency partners on doing this. We know we need to be in the space. We know that's where the people are and we need to go there. But we have to be very, very careful about how we do that. The old, what would you call it, the interruption model of advertising, where seeing the ad is the price that the audience has to pay to get the content. We're going to put the ad in the middle of the news and force you to watch it so that you can see the news. That model is clearly not going to work here. We need something very, very different. In fact, one of the key things that was discussed at Cities, we have a global digital council which I'm part of. One of the key things that was discussed at the digital council was actually about permissions. What do we have permission to do? to make sure that we're welcoming into these conversations. Because markets are conversations. Conversations are markets. The exchange of value and the exchange of meaning, the sites for creation of value and the sites for creation of meaning, that's what a market is. And this was something that was very easy to forget about. When we as marketers were in a one-way mass media model, but something that is brought home very concretely to us in social media environments and interactive environments where the consumer is empowered, where the consumer has choice. We need permission to do that. We need to be the kind of brands that people want to bring into those conversations. Like any human conversation, if you're at a party talking to somebody and the third person walks up and grabs you and says, "Hey, listen, I want to sell you something," you don't feel very good about this person. You can't force that. So the brands have to obey the protocols and the etiquettes that we all obey in our social lives. We have to be polite. We have to be respectful. We have to make a real contribution to the conversation. Give value away. It's a reversal of the models that we're used to. So, enough of me. I'm going to show you something that we're doing. Actually, I think are Microsoft people in the room? Yeah. This is actually, I'm going to talk about a joint venture we have with Microsoft. And it's basically about facilitating conversations and making a contribution to conversations. One of the greatest assets that we have as a bank is our data sets. As much as Google can look at the conversations the world is having and the things that people are interested in by looking at those data streams, we have trillions of data point data sets around the use of money. And particularly when we run lots and lots of credit cards companies, what people are spending their money on and how they're spending it. We know a great deal about these things. And we've decided that basically, given what we know about how people save and how they invest and how they spend basically people's money lives, instead of us going through an old model of having an analytics team do mathematical number crunching on the data to come up with a hypothesis for what would be an interesting value proposition and then go through the organizational process of taking that to the market, we're saying, why don't we just expose the data to the market? Why don't we just put middleware in place, messaging layers in place between our core systems and applications that talk to the outside world, so that our customers and even non-customers have access to the power of the data that we sit on. It's like facilitated crowdsourcing. It's the bringing together, the aggregation of enormous amounts of data and input, social networking with financial services.
Bundle is like the Facebook of financial connections. People go onto Facebook to update each other about their lives, and people go onto Bundle to talk about their lives as well, but financially.
We have a lot of data on how people are spending and saving.
Bundle.com, which is new data, shows March as what they describe as the spendingest month of the first quarter.
What we realize is that people want to actually know how they are spending and saving.
So, logging right in, you'll immediately notice that the biggest thing that we've added to this new version is the ability to add your own money.
But we're calling it socially informed money management. Unlike a lot of existing accounting softwares, Bundle actually looked at the gaming world and ended up using a lot of game dynamics.
Bundle has made it so easy for me to talk about money, both on the site and off the site.
I think that the draw for people my age, people in their 20s, is that Bundle is a very social media focused platform.
It's so easy. All you have to do is go to the
our launch, bundle.com has been visited by over 1 million people.
So that's not my project. I was involved in some of the early stage strategy on it, but it was a different team who put it together. I think it indicates an entirely different way of thinking from a bank's perspective about what it is that we do and the value that we create for our users. The database behind it is 20 million households. The power behind it, of those 20 million households data aggregated and made available to the user, is extraordinary. Bundle.com, bundle.com, it's in beta. You can go and look at it. Please do. Basically, what we believe is when you give people an interface like this as the front end on large data sets, they can learn. This facilitates communication and has a whole social networking capability, so people can get better recommendations and ultimately make better decisions about what to do with their money. So what we see is millions of behavioral trends and spending trends on a micro level, and then hundreds of thousands of these trends taking place on a higher level right across the US. And at present, this is only in the US. And the system, the interface, enables people to drill deeper and deeper in. I'm in my early 40s. Here's my income. Here's where I live. Tell me what other people like me are doing. And every time we add a parameter, that search and that focus gets tighter and tighter and becomes more and more useful to the people who have it. There are budgeting tools on here as well. So the whole thing really empowers and drives what I mentioned with the brand purpose earlier on, the financial success of the users of the site. Now here's the thing. It's complicated. That's a map from Bundle of restaurant relationships in New York City based on spending patterns. Personally, I put it up there because I think it's interesting and it's cool. I don't know what restaurants will do with it to monetize, and I don't know what consumers will do with it to monetize. And as we bring this logic to Japan, because we're launching this in Japan, there's a dialogue between me as a marketing person thinking about the customer, and for example, our product people, who say, yes, Taylor, but how do you monetize that? To which my answer, in a non-flippant way, is, I don't know yet. I don't know what the revenue model for this is. At the present time, Bundle doesn't cost us money. It's advertising supported. It's revenue neutral. But what I do know is that if we as a company, and other large companies like us, other large brands and clients of your services, only move into the revenue spaces that have a clear monetization model, we will ultimately not be exploring and not be growing our business. There's an opportunity cost to not taking the risk of trying these new things. Banks are not used to thinking in this way, but there's one way to look at it that even a banker understands. There's an old saying about bankers, there are two kinds. There are relationship bankers, and there are transactional bankers. Transactional banker is basically a trader. Doesn't care to whom they buy or sell. A relationship builder, a relationship banker builds a relationship. What we're now trying to do, empowered by this digital capability, is to increase the proportion of our revenues and the size of our business that we are pulling from relationships rather than transactions. We are building the value in the relationship, not in the product, not in the transaction. Because relationships in themselves are a source of value. What's your name?
Kyohei.
Kyohei. If Kyohei has a glass of wine, and I have a glass of wine, we both have a glass of wine each. If I buy Kyohei a glass of wine, and Kyohei buys me a glass of wine, build value in relationships? Do we extract value from those relationships? The reality is we must do both. But we need a model for balancing the two sides of that equation. So, this is drawing to an end. This whole conference has been about managing relationships in a digital world, in a changing world. We at Citi, we think we need to have, let's call it a balanced risk portfolio of innovation. We have a business model that we began 2 years ago. This is the big story I guess I have to talk about. Here in Japan, about 2 years ago, we embarked on a journey of innovation with global partnerships inside Citi and out. Basically saying, how do we recapture the innovation DNA that used to be part of what Citi stood for, and that maybe we've lost over the last few years? Not innovating technology, not necessarily innovating business model, not innovating product, but innovating customer experience. Putting the customer, or in your terms, the digital user, at the heart of our strategy, and figuring out what technology, what product offerings, and what business models need to follow from that. I don't know if we've got it all right, but I'm going to show you what we did and where we got to. We made a promise. First of all, we wrote this up. You may or may not have seen it. It depends on the effectiveness of all media, because we didn't put it in the newspaper. We actually wrote a promise that we said to our customer, basically, we want to make your life a little smarter and a little simpler. We want to make your financial life, your banking life, a little smarter and a little bit simpler. We went public with it. We held ourselves to it. And to do that, we had to understand who those customers were. So it was a big research project. Actually, a very big research project. I think you probably have the most sophisticated, most robust open market segmentation on financial services in Japan, probably in Asia. Lots of demographic information, obviously, and financial profile, but very large amounts of information around lifestyle and around psychographics. And of the 9 segments that got delivered out of this mathematical process, 4 were of great interest to us. Basically, you have a middle-aged salaryman, somewhat like me, and I suspect there are many in the audience. And you have a middle-aged salaryman's somewhat younger counterpart, maybe in his mid-30s. And I deliberately say he, because it turned out in this segmentation that gender was actually a very large bifurcating variable. Then you have this lady, who is almost certainly married to the salaryman, who is not working. And you have this gentleman, the Dante, a retiree. The Dante don't really like our brand, and we don't have distribution that's really very good reason to them, but there is so much money tied up in Japanese retirees, we figured we have to go after those target segments. Once we identified the segments we wanted to talk to, we built a strategy that put these 4 customer groups at the heart of a very long, 2-year-long organizational change initiative that led to dramatic changes in the environment in which banking takes place. The communication between bankers and our customers. The offerings, called them products, but there must be more than products, that we give to the customer, and the behaviors, the way that we engage with our customers. This basically takes us from a channel strategy, where we sit in the middle, and we reach out to customers through these various different channels, online and offline, to a customer-centric strategy, where we put the customer in the middle, and we're around the customer where the customer needs to be. And what it delivers is an ecosystem. Have there been any presentations from Apple? Apple have a very interesting ecosystem. If you look at the various different devices that Apple have, and then you look at their various include physical distribution, the Apple Store and iTunes and the App Store. They've built themselves a very tightly interconnected ecosystem for supporting the consumer's needs. We're in the business of doing the same thing. These are basically distribution form factors, and they run from physical and large through to digital, of course, mobile and web. But the most important thing about this ecosystem is, as I said before, digital is part of everything. There is no line between the web and the other parts of this ecosystem. The whole thing is digitally enabled. The branches are digitally enabled. These branches run off the same content management system that supports our web presence and our mobile presence. So, and this is real. This is why I said it's not a 2020 vision. We've built this. If you go to Tokyo Ekimaya, right across on the corner opposite Shinmaru, or if you go to Nihonbashi on Showadori, across from Takashimaya, 2 of these branches have been built. The third one is being opened in Nagoya in November 15th. In other words, if you go to a bank and you say, can you tell us your vision of the bank of the future? Every bank has a vision of the bank of the future. And everybody has a little pilot prototype shop somewhere that says this is what a bank of the future branch looks like. But this is not that. This is the production model. This talks right into our back end. This is straight through processing. This is change recruitment and training of the staff in these branches. This is Citibank's go-forward platform for retail financial services around the globe. It's very interesting stuff. This is the Tokyo Ekimaya branch. And when you walk in, that is a photograph of what you will see. Now, for the foreigners in the room who are not residents in Japan, if you typically walk into a Japanese bank branch, what you have is a very large room with a counter down the middle, with a lot of bank stuff on one side of it, and some seats, and a take a number machine on the other side of it. The counter is where everything happens. This environment is purely a space, a platform for customer experience. There's no back office in this branch. We don't need one. And the reason we don't need one, I'm sorry to be repetitive, is because we've taken digital into the real world. We haven't left it out there on the web or in the apps or in mobile. These devices that we see here deliver the same digital experiences that people can have online, but better, and with SaaS support, and at low cost. This is the Nihonbashi branch. And that's the interior. And finally, for our, not a private banking service, but it's a priority banking service called Citigold, we figure out ways that we can launch different customer segments using the same model. And the different pieces that make this work, different digital pieces that make this work, are these devices. The devices are not randomly constructed things. They are an experiential chain to pull people to the branch, to get people into the branch and connected with us, and then to enable them to do what they need to do with us. This device, it's a media wall. Basically, it's a giant digital billboard. The cool thing about it is that it plugs into a content management system that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And it sits on the outside of all of these branches, and basically stores branding messaging, from products and promotion messaging, but also news, weather, whatever we think is going to be of interest to our customers. When we opened the branch in Nihonbashi, we became part of the Nihonbashi Shonaikai, the Nihonbashi Tokai. We participated in the Matsuri. When we participated in the Matsuri, we had a live food feed to the media wall of the branch. And it was great. Because people were sending messages. But they weren't sending messages about banking. They were sending messages like, let's go and get a coffee. Because they couldn't find their friends in the crowd. And all this stuff was getting these branches are paperless. Actually, 95% of the case, to be honest with you. 95% paperless. Can you imagine a paperless bank? Remember those marketing budget numbers I showed you? 1.6, 1.7 billion dollars a year. About 35 to 40% of that goes into collateral. Think how much we can do with that money as we free it up. All of the content that needed to go into brochures and posters sits in this device. And rather than brochures and posters that talk about products, the information architecture on this device lets the user navigate either by product, or by lifestyle, or by need and solution. This is an interactive marketing wall. It's like the other one, but it's a gigantic touchscreen. You can go in, you can dig deep into the content. And then this is the engine that makes the whole thing work. We call it the workbench. This plugs right into our backend. And it's a banking box. It's about this big. You see a piece of furniture here. The real thing is about this big. You give me this, you give me connectivity, I give you a bank anywhere in the world with full service. You can move money, you can buy foreign exchange, you can open a bank account. And all of these devices are on a content management system that enables us either within 45 minutes of my boss calling me with a crazy idea saying, I want to message you everywhere. Within 45 minutes, us having that everywhere. In all our branches. Can you imagine printing a poster and taking it out to the branches and deliver? Either that, or much more interesting, we can pinpoint the content that we deliver to the device by time of day. I can put a media wall and a super ATM in a railway station, and when it's the consumer rush, when it's the commuter rush going to work, I'm sending them news, weather updates. These guys are not interested in financial services. They just want to see the news. I've got a sales browser in Isombashi at 3 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. It's credit cards offers, local merchant offers, 10% off coupons. We can now deliver these things in pinpoint character. And this is probably the ugliest slide in the deck, but basically, we see this content management system becoming the backbone for how Citibank will do marketing. These branches are how we're going to do distribution. This content management system is going to be how we do marketing. Because if I can deploy a file to the web, a file to mobile, a file to these ubiquity devices that are in all of our branches, I can export a file to a print publisher. The whole workflow driven off one basis. So, this is the media wall. We're actually building the Nagoya branch right now. The guys are doing signs on the walls, and there's a lot of work going on there. Two of my team went down yesterday and took some photographs. This is a photograph of the media wall on the Nagoya branch. We're rolling it out. We're opening one in Nagoya. We're going to move our Higashi branch around the corner to where Barney's is, all the way down to the book shop. We're going to open a new one of these there. We're being very aggressive in rolling this stuff out because it's working for us. Because as a platform for new relationship acquisition, the hurdles to entry are very, very low. People like these branches. These branches perform better than any other branches in our network in terms of new customer acquisition. And as a market, something close to my heart is when you survey the populations of people who walk into these branches, the delta on brand perceptions, the delta on perceptions of positive and negative attributes is huge when compared to benchmark branches. 82% of the people who walk into these branches think that Citibank is an innovative brand and an innovative company, against 52% of the people who walk into a normal branch. And these benchmark branches were not chosen to have the data, they were the best branches in our network. 52 versus 32% of people feeling positively about Citibank as a brand. 52% 57th best retail bank in Japan last year. And we were number one this year. I don't quite know how to translate Rikeiru Yoku into English, but anyway, we have the number one Rikeiru Yoku in Japanese banking. And we're very grateful to Nikkei for that. And with that, thank you to Susan and to the Adtech team for giving me the chance to talk to you. Thank you to such and such a fellow, to TNS and to Spencer Stewart for all his support and assistance. And thank you to all of you for giving me your time and attention.
That was an absolutely fascinating glance into such an enormous kind of global brand and a city. There were a couple of questions that really came up for me. I can't be the only person who looked at the retail environment who actually mentioned Apple in your presentation. I can't be the only person who looked at the retail environment and went, oh, it looks like the Apple Store. Was that a purposeful thing? Do you see cities becoming a lifestyle brand?
Yeah, two things. First of all, the design company that we worked with on designing these environments was the same company that designed the Apple Store. So the resemblance is not really identical.
They have a theme.
They do have a theme. Secondly, I think that financial services companies, because they haven't thought in this way before, haven't explored the emotional aspects of the power of their brands. So we could become a lifestyle brand.
That's very interesting.
We were 40, I think the Instagram survey came out very recently. We were number 40 in the Instagram survey this year, which is down on where we used to be, but it's still a very powerful brand.
And I think services like Bundle, you said there's no clear path to ROI with Bundle. You're just experimenting and associating the city with that kind of degree of knowledge. Is that part of the same transition, do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think we have to be a lot less direct. In many industries, it's easy to disguise. If you're in a zero-sum economics game, it's easy to disguise that fact in many industries. It's very hard to disguise the zero-sum nature of some aspects of financial services. Because if we charge you a fee, that comes out of your bank account. And we need to find ways to soften that and to think about the long term and not be purely extracting it.
On that note, I feel like this is a difficult question. I hope you'll do me the honour of answering it. And we've had lots of discussion over the past couple of days about transparency and about, you just sort of led into that, and the fact that interactive marketing, not necessarily digital, but definitely interactive marketing can lead towards greater degrees of transparency. About 2 or 3 years ago, there was a massive crisis of confidence in the banking industry all over the world, not just Japan, but the whole world. And I feel it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on what these services like Bundle or the retail environments, what cities take on that crisis of confidence is, and how you can feel it.
Without exaggerating, from a brand point of view, we have thought of very little else for about 5 years.
I don't doubt it.
We perceive that we need to change dramatically. And we perceive that we need to change dramatically not by advertising our way out of this. There's something I always say, which is that the part of the brain that processes advertising is the same part that processes jokes and processes lies. We don't take advertising seriously. But as you build these branches, the tangibility, the commitment there, if you build sites like Bundle, where the credibility of the engagement, these things are all actually brand values. We are quite serious about learning from past mistakes that the industry has made.
Right. And so you see marketing is becoming, it's really interesting the fact that you're showing a lot of your marketing is based around the concept of doing things rather than telling people what you're actually doing.
That's precisely the thing. The CEO of one of the agency firms of ours is in the audience today, and a little while back, he said to me, "Well, we haven't done anything. So be careful with your career, you haven't done anything." And what he meant was you haven't done much advertising. But I did all this. It's spilling over. Marketing now in our company, we're
That actually dovetails very nicely with some of the other themes that we've noticed, basically that everything you're doing, every touch point people have with your brand, be it retail, be it a social network, that's consistent, that's part of your advertising, it's a very consistent theme.
Experiences.
Absolutely.
15 seconds once to start on the news versus experiences. Experiences we have to provide great experiences.
Absolutely. I think one last question, just before we invite people back on the stage to wrap up. Being very honest, I think it's one of those things that's always very lovely to see, and very, when you stand up and say, yeah, we built an entire bank in Second Line, and that turned out to be not the thing that we thought it was going to be. This was a mistake that we made, or this was a thing that we did that we perhaps wouldn't have done again. Can you give everyone one insight that you might have learned from that, and what you sort of took from it moving forward?
From the same way.
Yeah.
I'm a lot more thoughtful about what we do as a relation. Sorry, but that's basically it. We kind of done a little bit of it. When you and I were chatting on Wednesday, I said, I'm always very careful about digital marketing stuff. That was part of what I did.
It's really good. It's very interesting. He had a meeting we met on Wednesday, and he said, I was like, oh, what do you want to talk about? And he said, well, I'm not really that convinced about digital marketing. And I was like, okay, fair enough. It'll be interesting to see what you think. So it's like the sort of second work experience you're reflecting on more.
To a large extent. And I think that there's always a rush to do things to do first.
Right.
There are situations in which first mover advantage and the sustainable competitive advantage that locks in is a real and valid thing. But being the first to put it out there, it doesn't have to be personal functionality. Being the first to attempt to create a community, because your brand really is about community. These things are not terribly valuable. You have to focus on what value you're actually creating here.
And on that note, thank you so much. It was a very balanced and interesting view. Thank you very much, everybody. And then, just to wrap up very quickly, I would like to invite Susan